Welcome. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Kiko's Freethinkers Forum. I have a very special guest with me today. We go about 4 years now, and we're going to continue to go hard. And we have a lot to talk about today. His name is Martín Hayrapetyan Wilson, and he's formerly a housing coordinator for ISA, International Studies Abroad, and his sister company, ELE, Asesores Lingüísticos, based out of Seville, Spain. He now teaches Spanish online, and he earned his master's degree in English, language, and literature at the University of Seville in 2014. Welcome, Martín, to the show, my debut episode.
Wow, I mean, it's no pressure for me. Thanks, Kiko. Thanks a lot. I mean, it's an honor to be the first guest ever. Oh my goodness, and it's been a while since we met for the first time.
So yeah, this show, I haven't even made a trailer for it yet. I'm actually going to do it after this episode. So yeah, I'm kind of letting the audience see behind the curtain a little bit. I'm transparent. I don't care. So it's all good. You know, I have nothing to hide. We have nothing to hide here.
No.
But just before we start getting to know about Martín and his views about some of these important issues that affect us right now, I would like to know what sort of established the tone for this podcast. This is an activist podcast. It's a podcast for free thinkers. We're not going to criticize you for having alternative views, but we will go against the mainstream news narratives that we see all the time, and we're going to touch on that today. And so there will be some people offended, more than likely, but we're also very strong advocates of free speech on this forum, and so we don't believe in censorship. And if you have a problem with that, then you can keep watching your CNNs and your Fox News and your MSNBCs like you continue to do before you heard of us before. So let's get started with our guest. As far as I wanted to know about you a little bit more. I know you're from Spain. We met in Spain back in 2018. But I want you to give the audience more or less your upbringing, your formation as a person until this point.
Yeah. Well, I was born, for the surprise probably of a lot of people who know me, as in like from Santander, because everybody thinks I'm Spanish. There was no other reason for thinking otherwise. I was born in 1987 in the capital of Armenia, which is, and I'm just saying this just for clarification. It's a Christian country, a tiny Christian country in the middle of the Caucasus Mountains, east to Turkey, north to Iran. So it's like a tiny country that is surrounded by bigger countries, basically. Okay. I was born right before the Berlin Wall fell. So I was born in the Soviet Union. So, you know, there you go. There's one thing.
Wow. So Armenia was actually part of the Soviet Union when you were born.
Yeah, one of the 15 republics. I always tell the younger generations, I say, if I die today or I became famous and they had my Wikipedia page, there's going to be a Soviet Union flag next to my birthday.
Oh, wow.
So that's one thing. And some people just say, what Soviet Union? It's like, okay, cool. Then that's a different thing. But yeah, I was born there. I grew up there till I was 7. And in mid-90s, just one day, just randomly, my parents sat me and my sister down and like, we're going to Spain. And we were like, oh my God, yeah, Spain, you know, wonderful beaches. And we're going to go to vacation. They're like, no, this is not a vacation. We're just going there. And they told me like it was going to be like two years. But my grandparents were like, no, you're not coming back. I was like, what are you talking about? No, we're gonna come back. We're just going on holidays. No. This is for real. Nobody comes back when they immigrate. I said, okay, we'll see, Grandpa. And then we just flew to Spain, and we arrived in Valencia, in eastern coast of Spain, and then we went to Madrid. That's where our journey started as immigrants in middle of the 1990s in Spain. The situation there was, the situation there, if you want me to give you some context, the situation in Spain in mid-90s with immigration was basically open arm policy. Like, please come here. We don't have enough cheap labor. So just come here, and I think there was like I don't know the statistics out of my out of the top of my head, but like I think there were like 400,000 immigrants in a country of 37 million people. So we were not visible. You know what I'm saying? We were not a thing in Spain. So yeah, we got there. I can tell you one thing. Like, look, we got to what in the United States, the USCIS, like Immigration Center in Madrid. We got there. I'm not kidding you. Like, just we got there. There was this lady. It was like, hey, who are you? We're like, yeah, we're from Armenia. We're immigrants. We just arrived here. She's like, hey, here's your green card.
Really?
Yeah, go to work. Go to work, multiply yourselves, and live in peace and harmony. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's crazy. And now it's obviously completely different, but back in the day it was easy.
So how long did it take you to get your green card as an Armenian? Because you were Armenian when you went to Spain. How long did it take you to get the green card?
Less than a week.
Are you serious?
I'm not kidding you. It was less than a week. We arrived there. We got registered as immigrants, and within a week or two, we got our what we call our green. Here it's a green card. There is a tarjeta de extranjero. So we just got that, and immediately after that, they sent us to this immigration center, which was basically like a residence with lots of immigrants from everywhere. I mean, there were Persians there were Afghans there was Russians, Chechens, like there was so many people. It was like the UN, and we were living there that was in Sevilla. And that's where we settled in southern Spain as immigrants.
So suppose that Martin was born in 2022 and you had the same family situation in the USSR in 1987. How long would it take you to get the same green card?
Well, man, first of all, you would have to prove why are you coming here. No, I mean here, not in the United States, but in Spain. You have to prove why are you going there. Do you have a job there? Do you have a job offer or anything like that? Then why are you coming here? So you would need a job offer, a contract or something like that, or someone needed to sponsor you. It's basically like what happens here in the United States. You need a job offer or you need some kind of a sponsorship, getting married to someone from here and something like that. So it's very, very it's way more difficult than it was back in the 90s. I'm telling you, we got in, it's like, hey, I'm here. They're like, here's your card.
So what's your perception as far as the attitude of the Spanish government now towards immigration?
The government is cool in the sense that the government keeps offering, especially the socialists who are governing now the country. The socialists have always been cool with immigrants in the sense that they have always extended the universal health care to immigrants, even illegal immigrants, which was not my case, but even illegal immigrants, if they were sick and they needed to go to a doctor, it was free for them. Which, as you can imagine, a big part of Spain now doesn't agree with that because they're like, we pay taxes to have healthcare. Why are these people who are not even working getting free healthcare? It's a humanitarian thing. Socialists have always been about humanitarian side of it. We can't let the poor and the sick die just because they don't have money.
Depending on which socialist you talk about.
I'm talking about the socialists in Spain, obviously. I'm talking about the socialists in Spain. The socialists here...
Not these fake-ass socialists in the United States right now. So.
It's so funny. Yeah, we got to talk about that, too, because the difference is so sharp. It's crazy.
Yeah, we would definitely get into the political mudslinging and stuff a little bit later, but I'm really intrigued by this immigration topic.
Yeah.
And I know we spoke earlier, and you talked about the system, the different types of immigrants you have. I actually have a question from a viewer, and they wanted to know, is there a color gradient in Spain when it comes to immigrants, when it comes to races of people? Who's on the top of the totem pole? Who's on the bottom of the totem pole? Could you answer that viewer's question?
Yes. Well, I know you cannot answer a question with a question, but I would extend this question to the viewer and to you too. Who do you think is the top? Where, first of all, there is a layer of who's the best immigrant, but who do you think are the best ones? Who do you think there is?
Me personally?
Yeah, who do you think there would be?
If I had to guess in Spain, I would say, let me just start from the bottom first.
Yeah.
I would say that the sub-Saharan Africans are at the bottom. And I would think that the Roma people, the Gitanos, the Gypsy people are above them a little bit, even though the Gypsies have been in Spain for a long, long time. I still think that there's a lot of discrimination against them, but I may be wrong. This is my perspective. And then I think that Asians are probably more accepted in Spain and other European Union members.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. You nailed it. That's what it is. Look, top is the Europeans. Like, if you're from Great Britain, if you're from France, if you're from Germany, it doesn't matter if you're coming for the same reasons as someone who comes from sub-Saharan Africa, which is to work. I mean, unless you are filthy rich and from Norway or something like that, and you're coming here to invest money and going to Spain to invest money and things like that, well, you're like the the top of the top, right? But if you are just a regular German guy who just wants to work in Spain, you're technically still stealing Spanish jobs. You know what I'm saying? But it's not a problem. That's not a problem because you look the way you look. That's a stark contrast with what I found when I first came to Spain in mid-90s, because there were not a lot of us. We were not perceived as a threat as immigrants. So yeah, top is the Europeans. Definitely the second one, I would say, people who are kind of like me in the sense that we look Spaniard. Armenians kind of look Spaniards, especially southern Spaniards. So it's impossible to tell. Like, we can pass as Spaniards. So those who can pass as Spaniards, they're obviously going to have a good life. I think I had a privileged life as an immigrant because of that, because of my looks and my color of skin. Beyond that, if you are Latin American but look white, like an Argentinian or Uruguayan, you're kind of cool. But if you're Latin American and you look Amerindian, it's like, I don't want to say, I mean, I don't know if it's correct to say, but there's lots of pejorative terms in Spain. Yeah. I guess that they can call it Machu Picchus, Panchitos, sometimes
Sudaca.
even Sudaca, tira flechas. For those who don't understand, tira flechas means arrow throwers and things like that. So So there's so many pejorative names for that for people who are from Latin America and look Amerindians, so natives. And then, absolutely, Roma people from Romania. I think Roma people from Romania and Bulgaria are worse perceived than, I would say, than sub-Saharan black people, because sub-Saharan, usually the stereotype of sub-Saharan Africans working in Spain is that they work either in construction or they work selling second-hand clothing and stuff like that. But the stereotype for Roma people from Romania is that they are basically, their main mission is to steal and to scam people. So there's definitely layers of how people perceive immigrants in Spain, and it has changed from 1990s to now. Absolutely, it's a sharp difference that I've noticed, because back in the day, it didn't matter if you were from Latin America, from Romania, it didn't matter. It was just like, oh yeah, it's cool. They're coming here to do the jobs that we don't want to do. Now it's like they're coming to steal our jobs.
For sure. And just to add a little bit of context to this, and I don't know how relevant it is, but I think it's important to briefly mention the situation that I was in when I was in Santander in 2018, and also Don Duke as well. Don Duke had an issue getting a tennis membership. We're directing students study abroad in Spain, in the north part of Spain, and one of the professors is having troubles getting a membership because the area she's from, she's a black woman. I'm dealing with issues there with racism, 3 or 4 different instances that I can think of, but the one was when I was called a monkey by another black person, an Afro-Peruvian woman.
I remember that. I remember you told me that. That was shocking, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that that's one of those things, too, where immigrants adopt the attitude of the space that they come to sort of assimilate or become a part of the country, and so they take on those same attitudes as the environment that they're in. Do you see any validity to that observation?
Well, yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. Here's the thing. I never in my life as an immigrant in Spain adopted the attitude of that person, the Afro-Peruvian person. Obviously not. But I do have to say that growing up, and this is an interesting thing, I guess, for someone who, I think this happens with Latin Americans or immigrants in general in United States too. There's a moment when you're a first generation, like an immigrant, like the kid of a, no, I don't know if that's considered first generation. Like basically your parents are immigrants and you were not born in United States. And you grow up and in your teenage years, early teens and late teens, you don't want to stand out as someone who's not from the community that you're living in. Because you're forming your own identity and you don't want to, a lot of people in that age, they don't want to stand out as marginalized people who don't belong in a group or such. So because I was able to pass as a Spaniard until I got in the classroom and they said Martín they would try to say my last name and I'd be like, I'm here. To say everybody like would turn their heads and like look at me and I'd be like, yes, that's me. Hey, here, I'm here. That was back in the day when there was barely no immigrants in my classroom, and I was the only one there. So everybody was cool with that because I kind of look like them, you know. There's Martín, he speaks perfect Spanish, you know. I think that's another thing. I don't want to get like, you know, off track, but that's another thing that's such a...
Do what you want to do.
That's another thing that's absolutely important when you're an immigrant. If you speak with an accent, strong accent, or if you struggle speaking the language, you're kind of automatically excluded from a group of who could be a Spaniard. Like... it's like when someone talks to you and they have to explain the things to you a couple of times, or you don't understand, there's a language barrier, stuff like that, or you speak with a strong accent. I did perceive that people didn't consider them as part of the Spanish family. So, but because I was able to speak Spanish perfectly, they couldn't tell me where I was from. Now with my beard, I look like I'm from Persia, but back then they didn't know where I was from. So they were cool with me, and I was like kind of like a, I don't know what term to use, but I was like the type of person who was happy with passing as a Spaniard.
Gotcha.
So I never took part in confirming their biases against immigrants, but I was complicit a lot of times in the sense that I didn't say anything to defend those immigrants because I always thought, oh, there's going to be, they're going to be, oh, so you're one of them. I do have to say that it wasn't like I never told anyone that I was an immigrant. That was not the case. It's just in my teen years when I was growing up and I didn't want to stand out as someone different. I just want to be part of it. I didn't want, especially people asking me questions of where are you from, things like this. So I would just say, yeah, I'm from here, I'm from Spain, and then, I would pass as a Spaniard, and then I would hear so much, like, people in Spain, whoever is listening to me, if anybody's from Spain or been to Spain and never experienced racism, you don't know how racist a nation is until you pass as one of them, and they feel comfortable talking to you about immigrants.
Unbelievable.
Or people from another races.
And a very interesting point that you made about the comfort level. Once the breach is broken, people feel like they can share the real details of their psychology with you, and then you start to see the underbelly of the racism. I think that there's 2 areas in Europe that don't have a commission for racism in the entire country. And I think those 2 countries are San Marino and Spain. And it shows that there's no commission that details like instances of racism in Spain because from my experience, I've been there 4 different times and I've had a very negative perception of Spain. Conversely, a lot of my Euro-American friends have had relatively great experiences in Spain, but
of course,
a lot of black people I know that go to Spain, they have very negative experiences because and it depends on how you go. Are you going as a tourist? Are you going there for a job to work? Are you going there? The way you go to a place has a lot to do with the way people perceive you as well. Are you going by yourself? Or are you going in a group? And a lot of times I'm by myself, when I'm traveling. And so I've gotten some pretty ugly blowback from people in Spain, but it also depends on which area you're in. You go to
Yes.
Barcelona, it's a little bit more comfortable for me. At least for me, I can't speak for everybody. Madrid, a little bit more comfortable. But when I went to Madrid in 2005, after they bombed the metro, I think it was ETA. Is that the group?
No. They tried to blame it on them, but it was Al Qaeda. It was
Al Qaeda. Okay. It was Al Qaeda. So yeah, that happened. And see, I'm going there right after that happens in the fall, and then you have a situation where I'm being asked, like, do I have enough money? Do I have drug money to get an apartment? I couldn't even get an apartment to rent because they thought that I was laundering money. They thought, he's this sub-Saharan swindler. He has dirty money. And so I got that. I've gotten called a monkey. I've been called Sudaka. I've been called a mortal. I've been called lots of different slurs just in my 4 experiences there. And so I was trying to get your perspective. But you sort of open it to where, like, no, I'm not going to allow them to get to me because I'm going to decide to pass as one of them.
Yes.
Like that's kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, I think if there was the psychology behind what I did was because I realized that I could pass. I was like, I'm not going to have to deal with any BS from these people. I'm just going to live my life quietly, cowardly from my point of view now. But back in the day, as a teenager, it was like, look, this is like a piece of cake. You know what I'm saying? I can pass as a Spaniard. Why am I going to have to go through, being called this or that? Although I got to tell you though, even if people who did know that I was an immigrant, people who like in my inner circle or friends of friends who knew that I was immigrant, I mean, I never had problem with them because for the same reasons, because I looked like a Spaniard, and I spoke Spanish perfectly. I knew about his Spanish history, Spanish culture. So I ate Spanish food. So for them, there was no indicator, like strong indicator that I was not one of them, even though they knew that I was an immigrant. Still, there was no problem for me because so as an immigrant, I would say from my perspective, not back in the day, I didn't see it that way, but from now, I can see how that was a privilege that I had, honestly, as an immigrant, because I could just literally be a Spaniard, and there was no problem. Later on, I became an Armenian nationalist, which is a different story, and then started hating Spain for everything. I would tell people openly that I was Armenian, not a Spaniard. I would cheer.
When was this period that you became an Armenian?
This was in college when I started going to college. I was tired of having to feel like I was like an extraterrestrial just because I was from Armenia. There's so many stories, but yeah. Anyways, I do have. Let's go back for a second to what you said about your experience in Spain. I didn't experience that obviously as non-black or brown person in Spain. I do know that is a thing in Spain, and Santander, which was where we were when we met each other. Santander is pretty much a dominion of the Conservative Party in Spain, the PP, as we call the populars, and not only PP but also the fascist party. Not necessarily that the people are like that. It's just it's a
absolutely.
Stronghold of conservative Spain. Absolutely. It's always been pretty much conservative. Very very old people living there. Most of the population is old. A lot of population there is pretty rich. So you have your tennis clubs, you have this and that. I do have to say though, here in the United States, I think the culture is pretty much the same when it comes to country clubs and things like that. I do think that country clubs here, golf clubs, are still predominantly white, European white, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that in more than one occasion, a black person or an Asian person going to join one of these clubs here, they wouldn't probably openly be rejected, but like some kind of like a our rates went up to 50,000 a year. Can you pay this? You're like, oh shit, wow! I thought your website said it's $20 a month. So I'm pretty sure it happens there. I think every time there's like accumulation of wealth and a sense of identity as a European white identity, it becomes just like basically a stronghold of like ancestral European, Western traditions, So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to sort of segue into, we're going to stick with Spain for a while before we sort of do this comparative analysis between the United States and Spain, because you are living in the U.S. now.
Yes, I am.
And so you say you just got your green card here, right?
Yes. I'm an immigrant again. Thank you.
Congratulations. I don't know if that's the right thing to say.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. Yeah. After 8 months of waiting for it, I'm finally have the green card.
So, I wanted to talk a little bit more about sort of the socialism aspect of Spain, but particularly with the idea, the issue of sex work right now. This has gone on for a few years. I'm going to actually post some links onto the Spotify channel. When I actually launch the podcast on Spotify, I'm going to have links to all the different articles that I'm getting this stuff from so the viewers can read it. But the one article was from Wayan, World is One News, which is out of India. And there was another site that talked about last year that this was a thing with the whole the Socialist Party trying to ban sex work. Could you elaborate more on this in Spain?
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, I haven't been. I gotta tell you, I have been following more the war in Ukraine than what's happening in Spain. But I do know the situation, not as an expert and analyst, but obviously as someone who's been reading the different pieces of news from different newspapers, because you have to do that, because otherwise, if you stick to one, you have a problem. So they're not. So here's the thing. So the Socialist Party. This all started back when they tried to ban prostitution, but it all led to this law that was going to be the solo sí es sí, only yes is yes, which is no means no, basically in Spain.
Right.
And so, because I don't know, this is going way back. I'm not exactly sure when this happened, but there was a year when in the San Fermines, in this, everybody will know this. There's a place in Spain where people run in front of the bulls.
The running of the bulls, what people refer to as the running of the bulls, is actually the San Fermin festival.
San Fermin festival, yeah. So there was this 5 or 6 guys from Sevilla. What are we gonna do? From my city. 5 guys from Sevilla who basically they accosted this girl in a building in the building, and they raped her, and they recorded the rape, and they basically claimed in the trial when they had the trial, they claimed that she didn't say no. She never said no, and actually in the recording she never says no. She does say, stop it, like, you're hurting my arm or this and that, but she never explicitly say no. So they were claiming that because she said no, there was no means no case. So there was no such a thing as no means no, because she never said no. So it started way back then, and as feminist groups and together with the socialists, they said, there doesn't have to be a no for it to be an aggression.
Absolutely.
For it to be so some people just freeze. They don't know how to react. They don't know what to say. Sometimes they're afraid and they let it happen. They close their eyes. They don't know what to do, and they wait until it's finished and they just go back home. So it comes from that. So the law, they try to pass this law. It's still going to have to pass through Senate, but this law of solo sí es sí. So basically, that law is going to say that there is no need for aggression or violence for it to be an aggression or a rape. And the person you don't have to at trial, when you're standing trial, the woman or the man, I'm guessing, who has been raped, because men also get raped.
Absolutely.
The person doesn't have, the victim doesn't have to prove that they didn't say no. The person doesn't have to prove that why didn't say they do anything or they said anything. You know what I'm saying? If there is an aggression, which is kind of like a tricky, because at the end of the day, I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like it's always going to be the one's word against another.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I do think that if it's going to protect people in vulnerable situations, I'm 100% on train with that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there
So
has to be some sort of
is this the
prescription.
justification to ban sex work because of what you're describing?
And well, here's the thing. So they try to put the banning prostitution bill within the bill of
Oh, okay.
see only yes means yes. They were trying to say that women who prostitute themselves, who offer themselves in service exchange for money, they would never do that freely. That they are not free when they become
Oh, wow.
prostitutes.
That sounds
That-
like a very purist point of view.
I will tell you because I read about the there's a sindicato, which is I guess a union of prostitutes in Spain, who the woman in charge was very critical of this, saying, okay, but what about those women who voluntarily want to work in a safe place? Because among other reasons, I get paid twice as much as I would be paid if I worked as a cleaning lady in the house. Because if I don't have any higher education, I cannot be hired for any high-paying jobs. And I'm providing my kids with university degrees, and we're living comfortably. Why shouldn't I be able to do that? Who is it to decide? If only I decide what I do with my body, then why is someone else telling me what to do with my body, which is selling it or not?
My body, my choice.
Exactly. So this lady from the union of sex workers, she was saying, I want to sell my body because I want to do that. Now, if you tell me that I cannot do it, then you're telling me what I cannot do with my body. So that's what she was saying. Anyway, so this law, it's not supposed to be punishing. So it's not prohibiting prostitution itself. What it's banning is what we call proxenetismo. So pimps.
Pimping. Okay.
Pimping. So it's banning pimping because pimping is considered obviously as someone's exploiting someone. So when someone's exploiting someone, they are sex slaves in a way, labor slaves. So they don't have anything to say against it. So how is it possible that that lady who's brought from Romania, for instance, and stripped away from her passport and is an illegal worker there, doesn't have anywhere to go to, how is that person free to do whatever they're doing? Basically, they want to ban pimping, and they want to ban or fine and close locals, the clubs and places like that are third parties, and they are benefiting from this pimps.
So why don't they say that on the headline? Why don't they say banning procurers or banning pimping?
Exactly, because that's the whole issue with it, because people are saying, you are saying that pimping is not allowed. Okay, cool. You're saying that locals who are that are like hosting this type of business should be closed and fined. And where am I going to work? Right. If I want to voluntarily work at a club, how am I going to work there? So you're kind of banning prostitution as a thing. You know what I'm saying? So you are technically banning it, because who's going to decide whether I'm working freely or not?
Okay.
Like, how do you decide? How do you come to a conclusion? If it's banned, how am I going to be officially a prostitute or a sex worker? I don't have a documentation that I'm a legal prostitute. So I'm always going to be in an illegal situation.
It has to be through an agency or something.
But there's no such a thing as an agency of sex workers in Spain. So it's pretty obvious that they want to ban any type of prostitution. They want to ban any type of prostitution because their claim is that any man, because the wording is man. And I understand majorities, statistics. I get that. Then they're going to say man because men are the ones who most consume prostitution. I get that. But they're saying any man who contributes to consuming prostitution is degrading and humiliating a woman and putting her in a position of subordination to him.
And who's saying this? Who's saying this? The Socialist Party saying
the Socialist Party, yes.
This unbelievable. That sounds like a very anti-socialist stance to be against prostitution.
I mean, because you would think, yeah.
In most socialist countries, they have policies that are basically, they view sex workers as workers. It's a service. And they're protected. They have to go get mandatory exams and stuff, you know, over a certain amount of time. They have to get examinations and stuff. And they have to pay taxes, you know. Why? And you're saying that that's not the case at all in Spain?
No. There's no regulation as to, you know, because it was some political parties, but very few of them, I have to say, opposed the law, opposed the bill. I mean, and they were claiming several things. They were saying, wait a second, if the majority of people, of women who are in a position of, let's say, I'm going to use liberally the word slavery, in a position of slave labor, because they are literally working against their will, brought by pimps from Eastern Europe, Africa, and Latin America, and they literally are confined to one space, and they're like illegal workers in the United States, where they're put in a van, taken to the fields, they work, and they be brought back to the warehouse where they're keeping them. So they say, okay, if this is the case, then why are you not changing the ley de extranjería, the foreign workers, foreigners law, which actually is allowing participating in this
trade,
slave business, in this trade? Because if you're not going to change the extranjería law, this foreigners law bill, if you're not going to make any regulations on that, they're going to keep bringing these prostitutes, and even if they cannot make them work in clubs, they're going to put them in the streets.
For sure, definitely.
If they cannot do it, there's going to happen the same things that is going to happen here with abortion in the United States. That's what's going to happen with prostitution. That's what's going to happen. What happened with bootlegging in the 1920s? You cannot prohibit certain things.
It's always going to happen. Absolutely.
You cannot. The woman who needs abortion, she's going to go the miles she needs to go to get abortion. She's going to do it to herself if needed and die in the try. If you want her to die, instead of regulating it, cool.
And I sort of lied about not getting the U.S. involved. But since you brought it up, I sort of have to slip it in. When you talk about the abortion argument, this is the thing. There are two issues that come up. I followed politics for over 20 years. When I was a green liberal, naive, didn't know what the hell I was talking about, but I love people. I still do love people, but I have a better understanding of how crooked the system actually is. And so a lot of times people are just simply, they're using their innuendos and their emotions to feel like they're doing the right thing. But once you realize what's happening, you step back and you say, okay, I can be a good person, but I can call these people out on their bullshit as well. So the conservatives, I don't understand at all, because these are the people who are apparently, they're all about freedom, about freedom. So why is abortion such a problem? 1973, Roe v. Wade decided abortion in the Supreme Court. Okay, this is over 50 years ago. So why are we bringing up an issue that was decided in 1973 now? What are we going to do tomorrow? Are we going to segregate the schools again? No, they decided that in 1954 to integrate the schools. So why are we reversing Supreme Court decisions? We're literally going back in time when we talk about abortion and even gun control, because there are over 2,200 gun laws in place now, and it's not keeping people from shooting guns in mass audiences. It's not doing anything about it at all. These two issues are the largest issues when it comes to the 4-year, 2-year political cycle. What are we in now? An election year. What's in the news now? Abortion and gun control.
Gun control, yeah.
Those are the two issues that they always use as the issues to sort of pit people against each other. So we can't talk about some of these other issues. These are always the two hot button issues during election cycles. So I tell my audience, I understand that you have views about those things, but keep in mind, what the situation is. It's an election year, and they're going to bring these issues up over and over and over again and dangle it over your face. But what's actually going to be done about it? Like I said, I mean, the Roe v. Wade stuff, how is that in Spain as far as abortion? Is this even a topic? Do people talk about this like they do in the mainstream media here?
No. Look, in Spain, I'm not sure exactly what year the abortion law was passed, but you can have an abortion, and actually it's included in your free healthcare. Like actually the state with the taxpayers' money assists you with, like, it's basically it's free. It's a free procedure for you. You just go with your social security card, your healthcare card, and you just you get your abortion and you're done. There's regulation as to what when you can have it or not. After certain, they kept changing it. I'm not exactly sure where is it right now, but it's like basically like in the limits of what scientifically, medically is considered that the baby is not autonomous and independent in the womb. So as long as it's not there, you can have an abortion, because they assume that sometimes women don't even know they're pregnant. They don't even know they're pregnant until it's the second month or third month. So if you have laws like they have in Texas, which is like it's within the first 6 weeks or something like that, how is she going to know? Sometimes they didn't even know. So you're kind of like, you're just screwed if you want to do that. So that doesn't exist in Spain. In Spain, it's always been an issue of, when is it right to do it? Obviously, the most conservative parties don't want it, but they don't. But religion doesn't play such a big part in the matters that are state matters.
Even though it's a very Catholic country, which I think is very interesting.
That's very interesting. Ireland has an abortion law that is way better than the United States, and it's a Catholic country. Italy has a better abortion law, and the Vatican City is in Italy. So it's crazy to me that how... I understand where people come from. I understand. I always, because as you say, you're a free thinker too, and I'm too. I understand where people come from. I try to understand every aspect of thoughts of people, because I understand that they were people like me when they were kids growing up. They were innocent. They grew up and somehow they got these ideas, and I'm always interested in knowing how they got there in life. So I get that, but how is it possible here that the people who are most in favor of life are also pro-guns? How people who are so pro-life are willing to make this clandestine and allow women to go and die in some corner in a dark alley getting illegal abortions? And how can you want this kid to come to a world when you don't even subsidize any help to them because it's too socialist to do that? You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy. To me, it's crazy, because if you're pro-life, look, cool, you're pro-life, cool. When this baby is alive, you have to bring him to a society that is equipped to have this baby, so that baby can live and not get shot in the school and not die from hunger and starvation, you know what I'm saying? Have diapers and things like that. If you cannot provide that, then you don't care that much about life.
Absolutely. For sure that everyone's definition is different about pro-life, pro-choice. But like I was saying before, I honestly, and it's not to degrade people's views about abortion or gun control.
No.
But it's a distraction in the sense that it's really two quote-unquote sides of the same coin arguing with each other, because Democrats get currency points with their base. If they say that they're for abortion, they get credit for that because these mean, vile, dinosaur Republicans are trying to take away the women's rights. They're trying to take away abortion rights. And so, but then the conservatives can also spin it and say, we're protecting life. It's bullshit. It's bullshit between the two.
Both of them.
The uniparty. It's the same fucking party. I try to tell people this, that they're the same fucking people. I know that they don't think that, but they are. They're arguing literally about things that are going to make their side look better.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what are some of your other views about the world besides those two issues during election time? And that's why the media slings it in our face all the time. And there's another issue I'm going to bring up soon that we're going to talk about, the whole Ukraine versus Russia thing. That's thrown down our throats a lot. And I have a lot to say about that. You probably have a lot to say about it as well. Let's sort of go into Spain still and talk about this whole idea of extreme versus non-extreme. Could you talk about that some? What's an extremist in Spain? What's a terrorist in Spain? Could you tell me that?
Well, definitely not what it is here, because in Spain, terrorist is someone who a terrorist in Spain. Look, I go first with the definition of terrorist, terrorist there, and then extremist there, because it's very different. So a terrorist there is pretty much like what people think here in a way, which is unfortunately associated with Muslims, Al Qaeda and ISIS, this and that, or from the Basque country, the terrorist group from the Basque country that wants the autonomy, the complete independence from Spain of this region called País Vasco. So, and they did carry out, for those who don't know, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, they carried out like they did put like bombs in cars. They blew shit up every other day at courthouses, blowing up courthouses and stuff like that. So that's the terrorist there, but it doesn't go beyond that. A terrorist is that basically. An extremist in Spain, and this is the funny part of it, the extremist in Spain is the one like Podemos, which is this party that came out of the kind of like an Occupy Wall Street, but Spanish version of Occupy Wall Street movement. And it actually they got in like a very quickly they meteoric ascension to the Spanish politics, to a point where Podemos, this party, was like a co-governing Spain for some time. So this political party is in the left as you can go, basically, in Spain.
And
which is
called again?
Podemos. Like yes we can, like we can. It came from Obama. Obama's
Are you
slogan.
serious?
Yeah. No, seriously. It comes from yes we can.
Are they really far left?
Yeah, they're very far left.
Because that motherfucker's not left at all.
Which ones?
Obama.
Oh no, I know.
I just think it's interesting that they took something from him.
I think they. No, Obama. I don't think the Democratic Party is left. I think they are like center, leaning towards left, and the Republicans are center, leaning to extreme right, basically. Sometimes.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. But yeah, no, I don't consider Democrats as a leftist party at all. But in Spain, Podemos is like, oh my goodness, it's like the left as you can go without being communist, openly communist. Okay. As left as you can go without being like a terrorist, like a left-wing terrorist. Which
now, what do you mean by far left? What does the far left look like in Spain? What are some of their views? Do you know anything about their views?
Yeah, so let's talk about the Socialist Party really quickly, just very briefly. Socialist Party is basically like a Democratic Party here, but let's say the Bernie of the Democratic Party. So this is a party that defends free healthcare. This is a party that defends, heavy intervention of the state in the matters of the business and stuff. Everything has to be kind of like a centralized in the sense that one healthcare for everyone, one this everyone, education. One this for everyone, one free education or very cheap education. Basically everything public. The Podemos says, you guys are not left. You're center left. You're not even left because you have abandoned the workers. Because although you are offering free healthcare, you are offering free the education, but what about raising the minimum wages of the workers? What about protecting the rights of the workers? What about not evicting people from their houses because they can't pay it? Because the Socialist Party was complicit in that, in like evicting people from their houses. Because the Socialist Party in Spain is basically a capitalist party, which is sounds ridiculous, but they are socialist and capitalist in the sense that,
for sure.
They bailed out the banks several times. So the thing is, like, how can you be socialist, aka humanitarian party? you give them free healthcare, but then they don't have anywhere to live. So what am I going to do with free healthcare if I'm get evicted because I don't have a job? So the Podemos is basically everything has to be public, everything has to be cheap. The top 1% has to be taxed up to their asses, and the people who have lower income, they have to pay very low taxes. Mm-hmm. So basically, and when it comes to abortion, when it comes to gender identities, when it comes to, oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but transgender, the reassignment of sex stuff, all of that is included in free healthcare in Spain. So
just like it is in Cuba.
Yeah, exactly. So those are things that Podemos wants to take it to a next level, which is, oh my goodness, like anything you can imagine that is like lowering prices, making sure that everybody has a right to right, not a privilege, but the right to a house, and they got their, raising the job percentage and also the pays. So and one more thing about Podemos is that it was very controversial in Spain. They actually sat down in several occasions with these Basque political parties and Catalan political parties that were separatists. So they would sit down with them and negotiate the possibility of a future, separation of these regions from Spain. So obviously, a lot of people didn't take that well. And in the following elections, that was noticeable because they started losing a lot of seats in the Congress because, people started saying you are a Spanish party, but you are kind of in favor of Catalonia and País Vasco becoming more autonomous and being independent. So that's why they call them extremists, because they go there. They went there where...
So Podemos would be considered an extremist group?
It is considered extremist by the conservatives, yes.
Okay, so what about, and you say that they were talking to the Basque nationalist people, or those people viewed in the same spectrum politically?
Well, I mean, there are political parties in the Basque country right now, legal political parties like Bildu or EH. Those are two parties. They are formed by former members of ETA. So when ETA, this terrorist group, dissolved, because they officially dissolved, they decided that the violence was not the option, was not the path, because instead of helping them, it was doing harm to their own credit. So what they did was like, okay, let's become legal and political. So they decided to register as as members of a political party, and they formed their own political party. So for Pablo Iglesias, the leader of this political party, to sit down and have talks and conversations with these political parties was seen as treason by many Spaniards, left or right.
Wow. So how many main political parties do you have in Spain?
Oh my goodness. We have many.
Really?
Yeah. So we had only two. Back in the day. When I arrived in Spain and in the first half of the 2000s, there was just two main political parties. There were three, but the third one was actually the Communist Party. And the third one was the Communist Party. PP, which is the conservatives, PSOE, which is the socialists, and the third one was called Izquierda Unida, which, as its name indicates, is trying to be the unified left. There's nothing unified about left in Spain, so they were nothing. The left has never been unified, never. They were the only ideology that has always been cannibalistic, always. They've always been cannibals. They've been eating their own, succeeding from their own parties, forming new different parties. It's like the Christian churches. It's like one that separates from the other, and there's like proliferations of them. That's what happens with the left. So at least in Spain. So yeah,
the same thing happens in the States too.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's crazy, right? So what happens is that those three parties, Izquierda Unida, PSOE, and Podemos, they were considered like a bipartisan because only those two socialists and conservatives were in power, and then a centrist party came around, UPyD, then a center-right party, Ciudadanos, came around, and then Podemos, which was the actual left party. So right now we have like around 6 political parties in Spain, but 3 of them are contending for positions, which are Podemos, PSOE, the socialists, and the conservatives.
So let me ask you this question: since you live in the States now, as your perspective as a Spaniard, now a U.S. Person living in the States, what is your perception of extreme in the United States? Like, what do you, as from your perspective, view as extremism in this country, if there's any at all?
You mean what I have perceived that Americans think is extremist, or what I think about the United States?
Yeah,
U.S. things that are extremist.
I guess as far as contextualizing the question a little bit, the mainstream media made a big deal about these fringe groups within the last 2 or 3 years that people hadn't even heard of on a mainstream level before, like Antifa on the left, Antifa, and then the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, all these media-induced groups no one had fucking ever heard of before. Until Trump was in office. Trump was in office, and then apparently the white supremacists just came in office when he came in. There was nothing before him. It all came in when he came in. That's what I mean. What's your view as far as extreme groups here? Do you believe that they're a real thing? Or is it something more fabrication from the media? Like, what's your vantage point of that?
I mean, I do think that these parties, these groups exist. I mean, I'm not, and I'm sure you were not saying that they don't, but they do exist. Obviously, they have existed always. I mean, there has always been Antifas. As long as there have been fascists, there have been Antifas. As long as there have been, super patriotic Americans, extremely patriotic. I mean, beyond just putting the flag in the porch. There's always been racist Americans. There's always been Nazis in America. There's always been the KKK has been around forever. So I do think that when Trump came to power, probably these parties who are like, the Proud Boys and stuff, they kind of got there a little bit of felt like there was a certain legitimacy to what they were doing in the shadows, because this guy was just openly, and I'm not going to go into he was this guy or other guy, but I mean, he did say lots of times like lots of BS, like how do you go as a president to a convention and you tell them all these Mexicans who come here to rape and kill? It's like, come on, man. But politician by definition is a liar. Politician as a definition is a fake diplomat, an actor. There's a PR team behind. They teach them how to say things, how to behave, what hand to extend when they saying hello to each other. And Obama for me was a perfect actor in the sense that he was the perfect politician because he was the best diplomat. He for me was the best politician, one of the best that the United States has had. Trump is like, I mean, with all due respect with those people who voted for him, I'm not trying to be offensive here, but Trump to me seems like a guy that they recruited from, I don't know, an NRA convention or something like that. They're like, you want to be president? Yeah, sure. Come and be a president. And that's what the appeal was for him, for his followers. They were like, oh, he's just an honest guy. You cannot be honest in politics. Unfortunately, nobody wants an honest politician in politics, because if our politicians are honest, if Bernie was honest, he would have said, look, what I'm offering you is something that I cannot achieve at least in the next 50, 60 years. Seriously, what AOC is offering
without the support, they don't have the support. But this is my thing. When you say that Obama was a perfect politician, for instance, is that a good thing?
I don't think politicians are good at all. None of them. I don't think politicians are good in general.
So that's interesting. So the whole thing, a lot of this is language. A lot of this is the way people use their language. And so I believe now the populace is very much, they're more concerned about how people deliver a message as opposed to the tangible effects that those messages are having on people. Like the tangible effects, like we can see and we have to pay $80 for gas. Like, we can see the effects of that. That's tangible. But people talk about, oh, what this person said, racist in the wrong way. They said it in the right way. He called me this. She called me this. She called me that. He said this in a beautiful way. He said it in a degrading way. Who gives a fuck what way they say it in? It's still, like you said, they're slimy politicians. And so I can't get that through my friends, though. They believe that these figureheads are really the answers, not realizing that there's an entire system behind this one person that is not even allowing some of these actions to get through. You know, like you said, like Bernie right now. Bernie, he's back to being like a good old boy Democrat again. Because all that shit he promised, none of those fucking Democrats that are on his side, none of them support the shit that he wanted. So why the fuck is he still a Democrat? That's what I don't get. And it's like, I believe it's by design personally. Just like the Trump people. I have a lot of Trump people tell me that they hate war. Okay, you anti-war? So why do you fucking support Republicans then if you're so anti-war? That's a big issue. It's because it's interesting. The same people who wanted to distance themselves from Trump, these same Republicans, they all voted for Republicans before Trump. These are the same people who all of a sudden, did they just have an epiphany and decide, oh, I'm going to vote for Democrats now because I don't want to be associated with racists? When y'all motherfuckers have been literally voting for the same type of people before and after Trump? Trumpism is here to stay whether people like it or not. I don't think they like it because he exposed, whether he wanted to or not, he exposed what the party really stood for. And
that's why they didn't want him there in the party.
Just admit it, and that's fine. I honestly, like I said, it affects people differently. But the Republican Party is still the Republican Party. The Democrat Party is still the same bullshit Democrat Party as it's always been. I just think it's when you have people like Liz Cheney, and the Democrats are celebrating Liz Cheney, a fucking war hog. Her dad, Dick Cheney, was the biggest dick of them all. He was the biggest war hawk of them all. Joe Biden, a big war hog. So what are they actually supporting? They're literally, it's like a circle that goes around. The war machine goes around. The pharmaceutical machine goes around. They literally support big corporations, and they're calling themselves the left. Like, I would be viewed as far left in the United States. And I would consider myself left libertarian, but I'm definitely way more far left than the Democrats. Like, I'd have nothing in common with Democrats when you talk about actual issues. Only the cultural issues. And the cultural issues, that's where the Democrats have figured it out. They use the left's language against us. So they love LGBTQ, they love black people, but I don't support reparations. I love you, but I don't support reparations. I love you, but I don't support transgender assignment surgeries. I love you, but I don't support college-free education. I'm like, so do you really fucking love me if you don't support anything that I'm representing?
No, because it's just a campaign. As you're saying, it's just like it's a slogan. It's like, okay, what is like when you're going to open a store in a place in whatever neighborhood it is, right? Like if you're opening a store, you cannot open a vegan store in a poor neighborhood because nobody's going to buy your product. They're not going to buy your products because vegan stuff costs a lot of money. So if you open it in very disadvantaged neighborhoods, who's going to... That's why there's not many of them in poor neighborhoods and disadvantaged neighborhoods in the United States. You're going to find a dollar store or something like that, but you're not going to find like something like a fancy, vegan. So why? Because there's a research behind it. Who are the people who live here? Who are the people who are going to buy our stuff? Well, these people. So let's just give them like the same unhealthy shit that they can put in their mouths. But the same happens. I mean, obviously, same happens with the political parties. It's a business. So if it's a business, who is going to support us? Well, the Republicans have these people here. We have these people. So we have to do something. Like the only thing left for Joe Biden to do was honestly show up on a Jimmy Kimmel show like this. Look. Like... that's the only thing missing from his interview. That he just like flipped the baseball hat to one side and just like start rapping, for him to be like more modern ever. You know what I'm saying? And this is the guy who spoke in coded language about black people back in the day, in the 90s and in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who are you lying? But then you realize that there are people who buy this shit.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people who buy into it. So you're like,
and I tried to tell my friends this, and they're completely quiet. This guy is Trump. The same people who say they're against Trump and they're for Biden. Biden is Donald Trump. This is the same guy that called black people nigger in front of the courthouse when he was a Delaware senator.
Yeah.
They completely ignore it. They tell you like, fuck that, Kiko, vote blue no matter who. No, like, fuck you. I'm not voting blue no matter who. Like, don't tell me who to vote for. People vote for different reasons, but it's like, so you're making the case of the lesser of two evils, which that's the reason why this system is able to survive as long as it has. Because people really believe that the other side is better or worse than the other when they're funded by the exact same people. Yeah.
And the same happened with Clinton. I don't want to go way back in history, but Clinton is saying he would go out and play the saxophone and bring like blues musicians to the White House to play, and then he had like the highest incarceration of black and brown people in the United States. It's like. And then he actually, after he was done with his term, he would like apologize for his laws. It's just like, I have never fangirled, because that I can't see it any other way. I've never fangirled any political party, never in my life. I've always been on the side watching people fangirling about this political party, about another one. Oh my God, he said LGBTQ. Oh my God, he's one of ours. He's one of us. He's one of us. Oh, he said, he said that he's a feminist. Oh my goodness, feminist. And then 5 years later, it comes out to surface that he raped or touched inappropriately this and that lady. It's like, don't you realize that these people are selling you a product? They're selling you a product. Every 4 years, they want you to renew your subscription. Every 4 years. Every 4 years, they come to you and you're like, hey, can you renew your subscription? We have new offers. And the new offers are basically the same shit that they've been offering, and half of them not even doing it. And people keep voting for them because and this is the craziest thing. This happens in Spain and I think everywhere in the world. The craziest thing about political parties is that at the end of the day, this comes up to, if I don't vote for this party, I'm allowing the other party to win.
Absolutely,
if you ask the left, if you ask the Democrats, it's, if I don't vote Democrat, Trump is going to win. If you ask Trumpers, if we don't vote for Trump, America is going to go down the shitter.
They're going to bring in socialism.
Yeah, they're going to destroy America and this and that, and then you see people on horses riding in Montana with shotguns. It's like, this is the America we want. It's like, I don't want that America. I mean, I'm not American yet, but I don't want that America, and I don't want the other America either. Is there two Americas? Is it possible for? I don't know.
There's lots of different Americas, and I tell you, people better wake up, because like I said, they are soaking in right now this government, state-sponsored propaganda from the news. They're soaking it in. And I'm going to offend, like I said, a couple of people probably, but the whole Ukraine flag with the little lapels on your Facebook profiles, like I said, I'm not telling you to take them motherfuckers off, but I'm just saying, where's the flag for Yemen? Where's the flag for Libya? Where's the flag for Somalia? Countries that we're actively bombing right now. The United States is actively bombing Libya, Somalia, Yemen. You don't hear about that in the mainstream media, though. And I'm not making this shit up. I'm going to link all the articles so these people can read it themselves. I noticed that it's always European countries that are getting the favoritism, because Ukraine's trying to join the NATO. Ukraine has a very complicated relationship with Russia. But I noticed that it's always support France, support Ukraine, support Spain, support. It's always Europe. It's always the G7 countries that get this credit. And I never see free African flags. It's always free to white European countries. It's always like that because we're so westernized and so brainwashed. It's like they just believe everything that the Washington Post tells them. It has to be true. It's just a Western mindset. Can you kind of go into how the news is perceived in Spain, and are there different alternatives to independent media in Spain when you talk about the mainstream news? How do people in Spain get their information?
The same way that here, unfortunately, they get it from the same way here. You have the conservatives have their own newspapers and media. Socialists have their own. I mean, socialists. The Socialist Party has their own media, and Podemos has their own media. So at the end of the day, instead of having a country divided into two, we have a country divided into three. So at the end of the day, it's like you're not fixing anything. You're trying to sell me plurality of ideologies. But at the end of the day, what you're offering me is just more propaganda for this new party. So what's the difference? It's like, no, wait a second. But the more newspapers we have, the more diversity of information sources we have, the better. Is it? Because the diversity is, at the end of the day, one newspaper and one media is loyal to this ideology, the other one is loyal to this ideology, and the other one. So instead of having two, you have three. Does that solve anything? To me, it doesn't solve anything. Now, if you want plurality for the sake of plurality, yeah, Spain definitely has more plurality of sources that you can go to. Good thing is that if you have 4 or 5 different news outlets with different ideologies, you can bring them together and read all of them and get your own conclusion. But how many people do that on a daily basis?
True. So how is Spain's government set up? Is it a parliament?
Yeah, it's a parliamentary monarchy. So we have our king, who's basically a cactus there. I mean, he's like has the same function as a cactus. And then you have the parliament, which is we have the Congress and the Senate, and those are the ones who are actually running the country. So yeah, it's a parliamentary country. Yeah.
And so, is it just a stronghold of 2 political parties running that parliament, or do you have a plurality of representation within that parliament?
You do have a plurality of representation, yes. A crazy plurality of.
So it's pretty diverse within that.
Yes. For instance, the regional parties, like the Nationalist Basque Party, Basque Nationalist Party, for instance, PNV. So they, for instance, are registered as a national party, not just Basque party, but like a national party. So if the Basque country has 3 million people and 2 million of them vote for the Basque National Party, so the Basque National Party has at least 3 million of votes. 2 million of votes. That gets them seats in the Congress. So you have this regional party, which imagine that there was like the Party for the Liberation of Texas runs for national elections, and all of Texas votes for them. They're going to have a lot of representation in the party, but I don't think you can do that here. In Spain, you can do it. So that's basically what the situation is. We have at least 6 or 7 different political parties, but they obviously, the big ones who get the more amount of seats are the socialists, the conservatives, and the Podemos.
But that's good that there is representation. And see, I'm a third party advocate. Honestly, right now, I would consider myself an anarchist. At this point, I do support third parties, and I really think that we need a representation in our government, because it's not even that I believe that a third party candidate could win the whole thing, but it's just it could be a good way to have checks and balances at the very least. Checks and balances, so you don't have 2 entities basically funneling money back and forth between corporations because they're backed by the same lobbyists, same corporations, and you never get anything pushed through because they're in bed together. And so you have no one there to regulate them because they're basically running the country by themselves. And that's what's happening now. They're a team that work together. And that's why I want my viewers to realize Republicans, Democrats actually work together.
Oh, yeah.
Not what you guys think it is. You motherfuckers are arguing on Facebook about stuff, but they're actually working together behind closed doors. Like it's a typical bait and switch philosophy, divide and conquer type philosophy. And it's worked for all these years, and it continues to work, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I do think third party, fourth party even is a good thing for a country. I do think that because like you can see that in Spain, for instance, when Podemos became like the third biggest party in Spain, a political party, the socialists who had been living the best life as the only left party who mattered in Spain, well, they did whatever they wanted. So if you were liberal in American terms, liberal, because by the way, liberal in Spain means conservative, because you are liberal in economy, which means you're more like a libertarian or conservative. So, anyways, the liberals in the progressive people in Spain would only have one option: either they vote for the Communist Party and get nowhere, or vote for the Socialist Party and vote for this company basically who favors big corporations. So when Podemos came around, it made the Socialist Party's life less easy. So they started to lose people from the Socialist Party, lost people who fled to Podemos. So what happened is that Socialist Party had to become even more left to balance to get back the vote of the left. So I think that is a good thing. Like if the Democrats had another left party in the United States who could rival them, and people fled from the Democratic Party to that party, the Democrats would turn left.
Absolutely.
They would definitely turn left.
Damn straight. That's exactly what the purpose of this forum is to do, is to make people aware of that. And just to simply, as a concession, at least have a demand. Mm-hmm. These voters now are just throwing their votes to the machine. They throw them to the ballot machines. Mm-hmm. They say, just take me over, take my body, take my money, take everything, motherfucker, because I'm not going to give you anything, but just take me with you. And that's what people do here. They get no student loan debt erased. They get nothing. They get no Green New Deal. They get no reparations. They get nothing because they don't demand anything at all. They simply vote for a letter. Let me vote for that letter, and that letter doesn't have anything to do with what I'm doing in my life. It's just, I don't understand that rationale, but I did want to go back to something about the extremism. I want to get your view on this. I use these people's words against them. It's on congress.gov. And I think the feed kind of left out, but the congress.gov, we talked about extremism earlier. They brought up a bill in 2019 called the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2019. Go to congress.gov, you guys. I'm going to share the link with you on the Spotify channel. These people, you can use their words against them. I'm going to tell you what they said in this report, just a little bit, and I want to get your view from it. They said that white supremacists and other far right-wing extremists are the most significant domestic terrorism threat in the United States. That's what the Congress is saying. Remember, this is still doing Trump. There's one bullet point that I had to mention. It says in bullet point 3 says, an April 2017 Government Accountability Office report on the significant lethal threat posed by domestic violent extremists explained that since September the 11th, the number of fatalities caused by domestic violent extremists has ranged from 1 to 49 in a given year. They don't even give you the precise years. One person to 49 people. I'm not saying that that's not significant. I'm just saying that our news cycle is bombarded by people talking about the terrorist threat is going to get us. It's going to take us out. 1 to 49 people on a given year is what they said. 800 homicides happened in Chicago last year in the ghetto. And they never talk about that. When black people are shooting up each other, they never talk about it. Not on that scale to where's the fucking gun control then when black people are killing themselves because of these drug laws that are in place, because they threw the drugs in their neighborhoods. They legalized some, they keep some to where you can have a dispensary for this drug, but you locked up for life if you sell this drug, or you have to serve a long sentence for it. So where's the outrage for gun control when black people are killing each other? Why does it take kids in the school to all of a sudden get an outcry about gun control? That's why I don't understand. And I also want to say, the report noted that fatalities resulting from attacks by far right-wing extremists have exceeded those caused by Islamic violent extremists in 10 of the 15 years. But what they don't tell you is that number before that, the 1 to 49. So they have us arguing the whole year about 1 to 49 people dying from terrorism, extremism, when we have all these other issues going on in front of us, but they focus on that to divide and conquer the people. What's your view on that?
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, when you have statistics like that, when you're saying, it's bigger. The number of domestic terrorism is bigger than Islamic terrorism. Or first of all, some of the Islamic terrorism is from people who are born in the United States. So, what do you call domestic exactly? You know what I'm saying? That's the first thing. What is domestic in your opinion? Second, what is the country in the West where there's a yearly amount of terrorist attacks coming from, let's say, people from outside that country and from any Arabic country or Muslim country? What is the percentage of terrorist attacks in Spain last year from Islamic countries? Probably none. What is the percentage of fascists or neo-Nazis killing immigrants in Spain? Well, even if it's 10 or 15, it's going to be bigger than the one coming from Islamic terrorists. Anyways, because what is the percentage of Islamic terrorists operating in the United States on a yearly basis compared to literally anyone from the United States could be a Nazi or an extremist because they are born here and they can be like that. You know what I'm saying? There's more Americans that can potentially be not Nazis than terrorists in a way, because I don't know what's the percentage of Muslims here in the United States, but I'm not sure doesn't exceed the amount of white Christian people in the United States. So if we're comparing two statistics, which is what the Congress does, I don't think it's fair to compare two things. There's always going to be more of domestic things than outside things. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Unless you are in Iraq or you are in Syria, where every now and then there may be some explosion here or there caused by ISIS or Al Qaeda, but that's a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. But in the Western countries, that statistic doesn't tell me anything. To me, at least, doesn't say anything. The Congress.gov.
But what it tells me is that they've blown out of proportion the actual effects that terrorism is.
Exactly, but that's what. Yeah, exactly. I meant that in a different way. What I meant is that doesn't tell me that it's an actual, like, a huge threat, right? Because even if there were 50 of them in a whole year, in a country of 300 million people, 50 crimes like that.
That's like a block on the neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's going to be always bigger. That's what that was my point. If you compare it to foreign terrorism within U.S. soil, that's always going to be bigger, because consistently every year, the Islamic terrorists are not going to come and blow up shit in the United States, especially with all the controls after 9/11. Mm-hmm. So to me, that just says that there is domestic terrorism, as there's domestic people who are just like blow up shit and kill people, as they do in Sweden, as they do in any other country. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, man, it's insane, the mindset of that. I just like the way words are used. Just like now, conspiracy theorist is a bad thing, when the government actually popularized the word conspiracy theory against people. The whole JFK assassination, conspiracy theorists, the government, the CIA, more or less took that word and made it to where you can't be a free thinker. You're a conspiracy theorist because you don't believe what the government is telling you to believe. And so my whole thing is this: we have to be careful about conspiracy theory, calling people that in a negative way, because some people just don't believe their governments. Some people know that there's way more to the situation than what our bullshit state-sponsored propaganda news is telling us what it is. And the whole word extreme, I view the government as extreme. I view these politicians as extreme. They have extreme control over us. They literally, how can we call ourselves a democracy when you can only vote for one or two parties on the ticket? because of what state you live in, you can't support the people who you really want to support because they can't have enough signatures to make the ballot. Because you guys set the rules up to where they can't even get on the ballot. So how's that even a fair situation to begin with? It's not even fair to start.
Yeah, they will tell you, if you ask them, they will tell you, which is the fucked up thing about any system that is made to perpetuate itself over the centuries, is that they're going to tell you, what are you talking about? You can always have a third or fourth party. All you need is people to support you. We don't prohibit you. We don't forbid you from having a party if you can get enough people. But then, how are you going to compete with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party? It's like me having a store in my garage where I'm selling books, like Jeff Bezos did once in a time in his life. But how am I going to compete with all the other companies out there that are like way ahead of me? I mean, they're paying millions of dollars for marketing. They're paying like millions of dollars for producing this and that. Jeff Bezos did it, but of course, I mean, in order for him to do it, he had to compete in a market that was more inclusive and more free than it is with any political sphere. You know what I'm saying? It's a market. Market is free. You can open a business, and if you're good enough and you're a good seller, but with political parties, it's more than that. Like, you have to start off with a lot of money. With a political party, you can't just start with $2. At least not in the United States. In Spain, maybe, but in the United States, you can't, because how are you gonna compete with them? You're not gonna have posters out there.
Exactly, the visibility aspect, the TV ads alone. A lot of people say Kiko third parties can't make it, but third parties actually used to be really strong in the United States. If you look at the 1992 and 1996 presidential cycle, for instance, Ross Perot had quite a following, over 20% of the vote. It's almost unimaginable now to think that a third party candidate could garner 20 or more % of the national vote. The votes are there for people. The problem is that they don't realize that the media companies, they restrict access to certain groups to get into. You have to pay for so many ads. You have to have so much support at the local level. You have to raise so much money just to get on TV. And so they create these bills. That's just like the last bill they created earlier. They were talking about the Civil Rights Bill, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, those dinosaurs. We're talking about the Civil Rights Bill. It had nothing to do with black people at all. If you look at that bill, it had nothing to do with voting rights for blacks. The main reason for that bill was to get rid of third-party representation. They raised the money for us to have to be on television, for us to get petition signatures and stuff. But people don't take the time to read inside of those bills because they believe what the news tells them to. And so they're like, oh, yeah, they're going to take black people's voting rights away from them. And I'm saying to myself, I ain't never met a black person, at least in my lifetime, that's been like, I can't vote, man. Shit. I can't vote. Because it's bullshit. That's why. And people believe that shit. And even if it was a situation where, and this is the thing too, if you're in this country, you can't agree with the other side. If you play the two-way game bullshit, you cannot agree with the other team at all, ever. Even if they have a good point.
Yeah.
The ID, the voter ID shit. If you need an ID to drive a car, if you need an ID for damn near every aspect of your life, if voting is so sacred as people make it seem, then why wouldn't you need an ID to vote? And then they use this thing that, do black people not have identifications on them? Of course they do. So why is that such a big deal for people to have that to vote? To just at least strengthen the system, because I don't believe half of these elections. They're just like Pelosi. He's been in office for 40 years, and she hasn't had anyone openly compete against her in over 37 years, and no one sees a problem with that. So who is she competing against? Is she just automatically elected each time? Like, what sort of checks and balances are there? And no one talks about it. The same for, just to make my liberal friends feel better about themselves, McConnell, all these people are the same people.
Yeah.
They sleep together. I don't know if they are in real life, but I mean, they sleep together. I mean, as far as their
Yeah.
ego is concerned, as far as
Yeah.
keeping their party, is keeping their career going.
I'm telling you, that's in Spain. It's pretty much the same thing. It's the same there. I mean, I look. I understand someone who's like a conspiracy theorist of the flat Earth or something like
Oh,
that.
God.
Well, look at that. I get that. I mean, the Earth is flat. And the telescopes are lying to you. The scientists are lying to you. Well, dude, I mean, I don't know. As long as you're not able to put that in the books in schools, I'm cool with you having your own YouTube channel about that. Cool, have it. Freedom to have that. But when people say that you're a conspiracy theorist because you believe that media is only showing you things in a biased way, and they're always feeding they're always there's a marketing department for a certain political party, and that I am somehow conspiracy theorist when I say that nobody's telling you the truth, that no media, mainstream media, is telling you the truth because they are partners with the political parties. I mean, this is in Spain too. I mean, big corporations, gas companies, electric companies, all of these people are siding one party or not. And you can see that. And you can see that. I mean, you can just go and to their websites and you can see what their partners are. Their partners are this and that website, this and that the news station. Everybody is like mad that the Fox News is pro-Trump. But what about the Democratic Party?
Exactly.
Just because they are on the Democratic Party, is that a sign of a healthy country? Healthy information? Like, just because they are nicer, whatever that is, just because they are nicer and they don't use the N-word or they don't use they don't talk about immigration in a bad way, means that they are not biased when it comes to the news that they're saying? So I have to be happy and like wave the flag, American flag, and say CNN is better or Fox is better? That's bullshit. Everybody knows. They themselves, the politicians, are continuously flirting and they continuously like winking at these big corporations and these big news outlets. We know, everybody knows, it's out there, it's open, it's not even secret that they are funding these political companies, political parties, companies. So who in their right mind can think, with a little bit of intellect, who can think that a company, a corporation that is funding 90% of the campaign for this political party is not going to ask for anything in return?
Absolutely.
That is going to be favorable for them. Every single bill that is passed that has to do with land concession, with lowering of taxes for this company or that company, you research a little bit and you see that this political party member and this political party member are whether in the somehow related to this company, or they have some interest, they have family who are related to this company or another. If you think that that is being conspiracy theorist, dude, I cannot keep arguing with you. not because I think I'm right. It's just I have no any other argument against that. I can't say anything else. It's like I'm against the wall and I'm like yelling at this wall. And if you're not gonna believe that, cool. I'm not saying I'm right, but if you don't see it, then either I took LSD, or you took LSD. It's one of the two, because it cannot be in the middle.
Yeah, we're on an island. See, when free thinkers are on an island like that, I think a lot of people are looking for a political home. Right now, I've taken a step back and I've said, I can comment on the political situation, but I don't think voting is actually going to solve anything, because this system is so sick and corrupt right now. Throwing a vote at the same sick system is only going to keep the sickness going on for longer and longer and longer. And so I was on the Talking BS podcast in the fall, and I basically said, within the next 15 years, and I hope it doesn't take 15 years for us to have a revolution, but eventually things are going to come to a head. I don't know how this revolution is going to look, but there's going to be a massive revolution in this country. I think a lot of people are still caught up in the 60s. Like, I'm sorry, RFK and JFK and Martin Luther King, they sacrificed a lot, but we got to get over that shit, man. That was 60 years ago. We need another wave of something, and I don't want innocent people to die, but there's going to have to be some sort of an uprising against this tyrannical government that we're living in, because people cannot continue to starve at home. The homelessness population is only growing in the country. The haves and the have-nots, the gap is only widening in this country. And so at some point that it has to come to a head, and it will come to a head. And I think it has to be a point where we just turn the page, stop relying so much on what these politicians are trying to sell to us, like you said. But it's really hard to penetrate that because the propaganda is so powerful.
Oh yeah. You're basically competing with. I mean, you're basically competing. Like if in a market, in a like a free market, you are competing with the Bezos and the Elon Musks or the Bill Gates. Competing in the political world is competing with Elon Musk and Bill Gates together, on one side, and the other two top 1 million billionaires on the other side. So. I mean, if all these millionaires and billionaires fund these political parties, I mean, how are you going to have a little political party prospering at all in the country? And people keep saying that the only way to solve that, I've heard this from liberal people, very liberal leftist people, saying, well, the only way to do that is not sitting in your couch and not voting or being an absentee voter, is to go there and vote. I'm saying, okay, cool, but who are you voting for? Oh, the Democratic Party. So then it's like, how are you breaking up this bipartisan system by voting for Democrats? Well, if I voted for something else, my vote is wasted, because every vote that I don't give for the Democratic Party, I know that the Republicans are always voting for Republicans, so they're going to win. There's going to be another Trump in 2024. And I'm like, but do you understand that that's nothing revolutionary? That's not revolutionary. You're not being revolutionary for voting. You're voting to maintain the same system that's going to have forever and ever a bipartisanship. In Spain, we had the same fears that you have here, same ones, for 30 years in Spain. 30 years because we came out of dictatorship. So the situation is not in the United States where you can say, like, technically you were democratic. Democratic from since 1776, but you can say that in Spain we had the same problem. We had two parties, and people were afraid of that. Like, if I vote for some like shady third, fourth party, the populars, the conservatives are going to win, and I want another term by the conservatives. People here, the most woke, the most progressive people, keep voting for this party that they know is not even going to let the AOCs or the Bernies to prosper in their own party, because they're continuously crashing them. I mean, the Democratic Party is continuously making efforts to get Bernie out of the party, or put him on the side, like never allowing him to get to the higher positions. Same with AOC, because that's not the image that they want to have with America. That is not the image. They want to maintain the same status quo, which is we are staying the same corporation, which is centrist at its best. Centrist, pro-war in so many cases. Anthony Blinken is a known warmonger. Everybody knows that.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows that. His nose has been in every single fucking war, including Iraq. And he's out there. Now he's justifying that we need to send now another $1 billion of taxpayer money to Ukraine, which I know it's a humanitarian cause. I'm not saying it's not a humanitarian cause, but as one bright savvy from Fox News would say, at least they're a civilized country. That's why they're sending all this help to them. I don't know if you remember this. There was a guy in Fox News who said, like, well, let's not forget that Ukrainians are a civilized country and we have an obligation to them. It was like, holy shit, this is this is what happens when you don't have the political filter. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So all this money that's going to war, which it's becoming more and more obvious that Russia is going to win the war in the East.
Absolutely.
Russia is going to win. They have been selling us from the beginning of the war that Russia was going to lose because the whole nation, the whole country of Ukraine, and the whole Western good civilization was opposing Russians, and that they were debilitating them. They were, oh my goodness, they were going to remove McDonald's from there, IKEA from there, and they were going to be poor. They're not going to run out of money for military. And now, only now, the CNN, if you read it carefully, CNN now is saying Russia is going to win the war in the east of Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So where the heck are these billions going? Because that's what I want to know. The United States has spent at least $5 billion on Ukraine, and Europe has spent around $2 billion of euros on Ukraine. Where is this money going to if they're still losing the war?
Well, you know what's interesting? You know that Ukraine was also, previous to this whole debacle with Russia, Ukraine has also been the center of a huge money laundering scheme. The United States systematically funnels money to areas like that. We give a lot of money to Israel, like these people who are our quote-unquote allies, to basically be another wing of the United States in their part of the world. In this case, Ukraine wants to be a part of NATO, and we know that NATO honestly shouldn't even exist. NATO, the point of NATO was to dissolve the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was dissolved 30 years ago. So why is there NATO when there's no more Soviet Union?
If you listen to NATO, they say that the Soviet Union has morphed into Russia.
Oh God.
So if you hear them, they'll say, because that's what they want to keep selling. They're saying, look what Russia is doing with Ukraine. They don't want Ukraine to sever its ties from the old Soviet stronghold, that they are still perceive themselves as a Soviet Union. Now they've changed the tactic, and now they're saying that he sees himself as Peter the First, Peter the Great. Now they're saying that instead of being the continuation of the USSR, now it's the continuation of the Russian Empire. So it's continuously, it's always like the good and bad, good and bad, good and bad. And I'm not saying that what Putin did in Ukraine is good. I mean, the guy is obviously an imperialist. The guy is obviously wants,
no doubt.
He's definitely killing people there. He shouldn't have put his nose in there in Ukraine. He has no business in Ukraine. But to say that this is a war that nobody understands, that this comes out of nowhere, Russia suddenly decided to invade Ukraine, that's not true. This is coming from way back. This is coming from Russia after the Soviet Union trying to push to West, and the West, NATO, trying to push to the East.
Absolutely.
To me, this is just basically the same thing that happened in the Cold War or pre-Cold War times. So this is not a surprise. Why is Russia the only evil in this whole world?
The United States is complicit too, because when in 2013, I think it was, when we got the government out of Ukraine, we were meddling with their politics in Ukraine. And the U.S. does this shit to Latin America all the time. They get a candidate that they like that's usually an anti-socialist, like
a populist, anti-socialist.
And they're just like, no, fuck you, Cuba, fuck you, Venezuela. We're going to fuck your political system up to make it to where you have to negotiate with us. And when those countries do not bow down to the United States, they ostracize them and blackball them, and they become the enemy.
They go to the blacklist. They go to their blacklist. Venezuela, just because Hugo Chavez, and I don't agree with the things that he does in his country necessarily, but one thing that he did was to just tell Bush, go fuck yourself. You're not going to have my oil. You're not going to have you're not going to have any person of your interest in our government. And automatically he became one of the biggest enemies of democracy. Democracy. And it's crazy because same thing happens in Spain. In Spain, there's a blacklist for like countries that are like bad and anti-democratic. Like, for instance, it could be, I don't know, Venezuela is one of them. Iran is one of them. But nobody has any problem. I'm not saying nobody as in the people, but like nobody in the government level has any problem with the king living right now in Saudi Arabia and being one of the biggest allies to the what's the name, Emir of the Saudi Arabia. nobody has any problem with that. And Saudi Arabia is known for its continuous violation of human rights. Like they hanging gay people in public squares, in plazas. So somehow Saudi Arabia is not even in the blacklist. I don't think it's in the blacklist of the United States.
You know why, don't you? Tell the
audience
why you think
they are. I mean, if we go back in the day, I mean, we can see like how there were partners in oil. I mean, most of the oil comes from there. I mean, it's a known fact. I mean,
as they say, money talks and bullshit walks.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you are if I can put military bases in your country, you're my friend. If I can't put it in your country, then you're my enemy. Holy shit! Holy shit!
So what we have is this empire, this whole idea of empire, with the United States also being an empire in itself, with around 1,000 military bases around the world. I don't see Russian army bases here. And again, it's not to kiss Putin's ass, it's not to kiss any dictator's ass, but they're all dictators. We have dictators here. We just don't call them dictators. We don't call ourselves imperialists. It's only in other countries that don't have our best geopolitical interests. Those are the enemies, as if Russian people don't exist, and we can't separate the Russian innocent people from their government that's tyrannical. Just like our tyrannical government here, we have regular everyday people here, but we're somehow viewed the way we are because our government's a shit government. And it's the same way in Russia, Ukraine, any country. Those are still people in Russia. And I think we do a good job of dehumanizing people because we like to focus so much on the one person, the two people in their government that's their figurehead. But at the end of the day, that's a society. Those are people in Ukraine. Those are people in Russia. But and then we have support Ukraine with the little banner on there. I'm saying to myself, people are so quick to put their banners on Facebook, but our country is actively bombing East Africa right now with drone bombs. And we have nothing to say about it. It's like, who cares about those African people over there? Let's support the Ukrainians. And notice how bipartisan that is. During the State of the Union, these slime ball assholes, they gave standing ovations. They all had the Ukraine flags. I call them the demon rats is what I call them. They're not Democrats, they're demon rats. And the Republicans, they're repugnant cants. They're not Republicans at all. They're literally our enemies. And we keep supporting these people. And they were all clapping, giving rounds of applause. That should make people think then, when these two motherfuckers agree on something, that means it's usually something that's not good.
Because they don't agree on anything. Like they don't agree on anything. When they agree on something, you have to think about, is this just because some kind of a transcendental humanitarian thing that they agree on? Because that's what they sell you. They say, well, how are we going to oppose and be bipartisan? No, not bipartisan, sorry. How are we going to be confrontational and divided in this matter when it's a matter that transcends political divisions and so on and so forth? I'm asking anyone in America here, I'm asking, if they sent tomorrow $5 billion to Kenya to stop, Kenya or any country in Africa or in the Middle East, $5 billion of taxpayers' money to those countries to finance people like reconstructing their houses or defending themselves from other foreign countries attacking them and killing them on daily basis, would you have the Kenyan flag on your porch? I was walking today in the street. There's a place here. It's a pretty conservative street because you can tell they're conservative by many reasons. You see this Ukrainian flags in every other porch, and you're like, okay, I get it. It's a nice thing to show support. But would anyone here in this? I'm not going to say white America because people who are now white defend this situation. $5 billion if they tomorrow went to Kenya. Do you imagine the outrage? Do you imagine the outrage, Kiko? Can you imagine this conservative people who are agreeing to send this money to Ukraine? Can you imagine the conservative ones especially sending taxpayers' money to Kenya. No. And it begs the question, why?
But see,
It's a humanitarian question. Both of them are humanitarian questions. Why Ukraine, yes, not Kenya?
I'm not going to get too much into the politics of the Middle East in particular, because we have a very strained history with the Middle East.
Yeah.
We're in the West, and so we created the East-West divide. This is going on a long time. Edward Said, if you read Orientalism, he basically says the East is a career. I mean, Western imperialism has always been a thing here. We've always tried to extract natural resources from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia. We've always had this complex about whether it's through military means or some sort of coercive means, we need to take the natural resources away from those areas that we deem opposite of what our values are. And so the Middle East is a very easy place to differentiate between, if you're in the West, geographically speaking, culturally speaking, they use these barriers as a way to justify aggression against other countries. And they don't telecast it the same way. I mean, in Iraq, 2 million people were responsible for murdering in the United States since this Iraq war situation. And no one talks about it like that. 2 million people in Iraq. So where are the Iraq flags at on the profiles? It's just, it never ends. I'm going to post this report later onto the Spotify channel so people can read this stuff and just think about it for a second. What made you put that on there? No one's saying that what's happening in Ukraine is right. I'm not saying
no. And it's a tricky thing. It's a very tricky, because if you happen to, in this situation where a war is going on and is being more televised, more publicized than any other thing that's going on, because people think that only Ukraine is right now being invaded. Let's read the news from African countries. You see that it's going on. Yemen is being attacked continuously. But it seems that there's only a conflict going on here because, as usual, when it comes to Europe or the West, it's very Eurocentric, it's very West-centric. This is what matters to us right now. But the problem is that it's so tricky that if you bring up why are we sending those billions there and not there, you are automatically in the group of people who are insensitive, who are not humanitarian, who are questioning some absolutely necessary and humanitarian operations that are going on. Nobody's saying that. This whole thing that's going on in Ukraine should have happened in the first place. Putin should have stayed in Russia, minding his own business, and he is a killer. He's a genocider for what he's doing there. Nobody has any doubt about that. I hope nobody has a doubt about that. But the question is, why does Ukraine matter more than any other country in the world? Why? Why is it so? And why is it problematic to even mention it? Because if you cannot even mention it without being labeled as such and such, then those countries who are not Ukraine and are in a similar situation, they are fucking doomed.
Yeah, they are.
Because they cannot have anyone defending them without being called such and such.
No doubt, man. It's dangerous. You have to really watch your ass. And I know, like I said, when I get the YouTube channel going, I'm probably going to be censored on quite a few episodes because I'm actually going to have an interview later in the series with someone that's Iranian, that's Jewish from Iran. Wow. And they fled Iran to the United States. And so I would like to get that person's perspective about the whole idea of Israel and the United States, how we basically kiss Israel's ass all the time. We kiss Israel's ass like no other. When it comes to war, the news media, any sort of, just like the whole thing, the Al Jazeera journalist that got murdered last month. I don't know, I forgot her name, but I may link that as well. If there was Anderson Cooper that got murdered by an oppositional group, they would be all over the fucking front page news. This is an esteemed Al Jazeera journalist, Palestinian descent. She was a Christian, I think. She was murdered by the Israeli forces, and they just brush it out. CNN actually covered it. I give them credit. They actually covered it. But they didn't talk about how during the funeral, how the Israeli forces were trying to shoot at the people still during this journalist's funeral. And it's like that kind of Israeli, pro-Israel, and like fuck the rest of the Middle East coverage is still going on. ever since I was a kid, it's always been like that. But if you say something like that, God damn, I did not know that Kiko was anti-Semitic. I'm like, motherfucker, how does that make me anti-Semitic? Because I pointed out that Israel is basically having an apartheid state right now when it comes to certain parts of the region. But you can't say stuff like that because, oh my gosh, you're not down with the cause. Oh, he hates this country. He hates Israel. No, I don't.
Yeah. There are certain causes. There are certain sides that if you don't take, then you are automatically on the completely diametrically opposite side, which doesn't contemplate any nuance. That doesn't contemplate any possibility of, no, I don't hate this country. I don't hate the people who live in this country. I'm criticizing the actions of the country there. The same way that I'm criticizing Russia. The same way you are criticizing Russia, I'm criticizing this country or that country for carrying out, actually state terrorist acts. So why can't I be opposing this without? I'm not opposing Gandhi. I'm not opposing, you know what I'm saying? I'm not opposing doctors without borders. I'm not going and bombing a Red Cross shelter. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you that this country is bombarding this other country. Just because that country happens to be Israel, I can't say anything about it because I'm going to be labeled like this. Then what you're basically telling me is that either one of the two, I can only speak about that country in positive terms only, or I shouldn't be talking about that country whatsoever. Which means, translates into leaving Palestinians at their mercy, at the mercy of Israel. The same way that we are leaving Yemen at their fate. I mean, they're going to have to take care of themselves because nobody is going to oppose what's going on in Yemen. Nobody's going to oppose what's going on in Kenya, because if you talk about Kenya, you're diverting your attention from the real matter, which is Ukraine. Nobody is saying people shouldn't send money to people are saying, if this is a humanitarian question, why is Ukraine a humanitarian problem, but not Yemen or other countries or Palestine? Why is that's not humanitarian? Because to me, at least from what I know, humanitarian crisis means when humans are in crisis. Are Palestinians humans? That's
yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? Are they humans or not? They are humans. Are they in a crisis? Yes. So is it a humanitarian crisis? Yes, but not as important as another ones.
It's absolutely sickening that people can't call these forces out on that kind of stuff, and the media doesn't reflect that. The actual journalism on the ground doesn't reflect the impartiality that they're supposed to have, and we know that it's not impartial. We will segue into a few things before we conclude this interview. I think we've had some explosive conversations, some informative conversation, hopefully independently reflective of, different types of audiences, because a lot of people think like this, where they don't necessarily believe what, the television tells them, the radio, all the syndicated channels are telling them. You have to dig into this stuff deeper. And we're under a mass censorship operation right now that is part of the collusion of the technological companies that you talked about earlier. That's the problem when you have technology companies as a whole supporting certain types of political aspects of society. Well, they help collude with the government, run the country together with the government. And I honestly believe that that's what's going on right now. I mean, Amazon owns the Washington Post. So you can't just say anymore that this is an innocent bookstore that you can buy a book off Amazon. Amazon has influence in politics. That's just like Joe Biden's campaign. If you go to Open Secrets, everyone should Google that website, Open Secrets. It tells you where the money goes to these different political candidates. $94 million of Joe Biden's campaign came from Mike Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg has his own cable station. He has a lot of different communication channels. So what makes people think that he's going to take care of your situation? He's not. He's beholden to Mike Bloomberg and that $94 million. And that's just one donor. So people really need to track the money. and see where that money, you don't ever get anything for nothing in return. There's always a return for that money. And you better believe that there was some sort of a deal made behind closed door when Mike Bloomberg decided to become a Democrat and join that ticket. There's always something in for people. It's never anything innocent in this world.
Look, when I was in college and studying literature, and my professors would always say, "Look, when you're reading a book, when you're reading a play or reading a poem or whatever, especially from the old ages, like Middle Ages, Elizabethan England, whatever it is, right? Check the first 2 pages of the book. See who the book was dedicated to." And the book was usually dedicated to some king, to some duke or marquis. It was dedicated to them, and most of the poems in there were praise, for that marquis, for that. And my professors would always say, every time you read a book, every time you read something written by someone, always ask yourself, who is this man who's writing this, or woman? Who is paying for his career? And who published this book? Because that is going to tell you what to expect from that book most of the times. Of course, there's art for art's sake. Everybody kind of thinks that that's a thing. I mean, art for art's sake. Vale, cool, okay. But also artists have to live, so they are going to conform sometimes to certain norms. But read. And journalists' number one motto is confirm your sources. Compare your sources and confirm that the sources you're drawing these things are legit. They are not partial, that they are not partisan. People are not doing that when they're reading news. People are not doing that. It's such a basic thing. People are not doing that because it's considered paranoid. You are paranoid if you are going to the deep. Like if I'm saying, okay, why does CNN? For instance, I was reading. I don't want to digress too much, but it's really quickly. I was reading about. I'm looking for like the news about Ukraine. What's going on in Ukraine every day, pretty much. And funny enough, most of the stuff that I read is CNN because I love comedy. I love the news headlines, reading the text. When you read CNN's coverage of Ukraine and you see that they have an article that is like, headline is, literally, I'm not kidding you, the headline is, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, please. I mean, nobody think that I'm being insensitive. I'm saying
you don't have to qualify it, man.
I'm trying to say
they're either going to get you or they're not. Like fuck these innocent snowflake motherfuckers. Exactly. They talk about snowflakes and stuff. Like I said, we have to be able to ingest and digest. You know what I'm saying? And so, no, you say what you got to say, man. This is Ego's Freethinkers.
No, of course. What I mean is that not for people who are like watching could be offended. I'm saying, like, I'm not trying to diminish and lessen the importance and the gravity of the deaths and the displacement of people that are happening in Ukraine. But when you have a professional, serious newspaper like the CNN, the news reads like this. I swear, it's something like along the line of, after the Russians left, our journalists, something like that, went to this building, and it starts describing the building, and it's like there was a little teddy bear. It's like you walk into this bedroom, the walls are painted pink with little elephants on it. There's a destroyed teddy bear lying on the floor. And starts describing this scene. This is the whole news. This is not like telling you what the Russians are doing there or what. It's like a whole piece of news is to describe that they went into this building where there were kids living there, and now they're not living. They're not dead. They're just like displaced. But at the same time, it's saying like the loss of innocence of that. I'm not saying they shouldn't have that in there, but I, as a reader, I'm not paranoid for reading that and thinking, where is this going exactly?
Exactly.
What's the function of this here? I'm not being paranoid. It's not being paranoid. You have to ask yourself continuously, what is this news telling me? Because why would someone in CNN decide to write these piece of article? They can't just write whatever they want. Mm-hmm. What is this piece of article telling me about the war in Ukraine? Mm-hmm. It's telling me a story, and it's telling me a specific story, a story of lost innocence, for me to commiserate, for me to be on this side, on the side of being, people are being. And I'm telling you, I do 100% agree that it's a real situation. Russians were there, they displaced these families, they destroyed their homes, and these innocent kids who were living in that bedroom now have to live in some border, in some country. That's a horrible thing. But when I'm reading an article, I have to ask myself, why is this here exactly? Why now? Why now? Right. People don't do that when they are reading an article. Mm-hmm. And after asking yourself, why is it here? You can be like, well, I understand that this is kind of like a, not propaganda, but it is telling me a story so I can think one way. But also, this is true. Fair enough. Fair enough. But you have to continuously ask yourself, why? Why did CNN continuously kept saying that Russia was losing this war, losing this war, losing this war? Why they kept saying that these sanctions and this blockade of Russia was going to render them more and more weaker and weaker every month, and they were going to lose? Why they were saying that Russia lost Kiev when Kiev was never their primary target? Why they keep saying Russia lost Kiev? That was a distraction. They were bombing Kiev and Lviv, which is on the west. They were kept bombing those cities so they could concentrate their forces on the east. But no, because according to CNN and according to other newspapers, that's not the case. They were trying to get the whole Ukraine. That was never in the plans of Putin. But you cannot tell people that was not in his plans.
No,
because then the idea that they want to sell you, which is Russia lost the war, will not work. Even if they win the East, mark my words, even if they win, which they're going to do, the whole East, which
they're
was
going to spin it.
They're going to say they won, although they won the East, they lost the war of Ukraine. That's what they're going to say.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're going to say.
Classic,
and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You're going to say that Russia lost a war and the Ukrainians won after 5 million people has been displaced from their cities, from their homes? You're going to call this a victory yet?
Yeah.
To justify the billions of dollars that you sent them? Or what is this? I don't get that.
I didn't even know that CNN was a serious organization. And when you put those in the same sentence together, almost.
Well, I mean, a lot of people consider them as a serious news outlet in the sense that they have the money, they have the outreach, they have the PR, they have the marketing department. They're like pretty big.
They are.
Well, I mean, they're telling a story. You have to read it.
But they're losing
lines.
a lot of viewers too, because of their programming. They're losing a lot of viewership, and it's interesting. CNN International actually has completely different coverage. If you watch CNN International, their audience obviously has to be really different because CNN International, their news is almost more like Al Jazeera is. But the CNN, the English, like for the United States, is very much for the shit libs, for sure. Like the shit libs. I mean, and just like I said, I'm not for shit libs and I don't conserve shit. You get that? Dude, the conservatives they're shit libs, they're all the same at the end of the day. But it's just one of those things where we have to be mindful of the news that we consume. And I was bummed because I followed Russia Today. Like, I used that as a publication. And so what's going to happen next? Are they going to get rid of Al Jazeera next? It's just, it makes you think with the censorship now, what's going to go down in the tubes next? Just because people decide, we can't let that be another channel of information. And it wasn't like those people on there were just pro-Russia. I mean, they were fucking U.S. citizens working for Russia TV, Russia Today. And it's just, it's unfortunate. But I did want to segue into a few things since we've talked a lot about Ukraine, Russia, which I didn't even think we were going to talk about today. But I'm glad we did because it's current news. And it does have to be somewhat of a current thing, I think, for these podcasts. Let's talk about your experience a little bit more to sort of go back to your introduction. So you moved to the United States. You're in Pennsylvania right now?
Yeah. I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm in Harrisburg. the capital. And yeah, I moved here. So I met my I started dating my wife in 2019 in Sevilla, and then she's from here, from Harrisburg, and then we had a about 2 years of long distance relationship, and then I moved here. I mean, I visited here several times, but then we got married here, and I moved. I mean, I just completely moved from Spain to here. Right as I had I had gotten my citizenship, Spanish citizenship, and that's the ceiling. That's the top. You know what I'm saying? Top of the top. Like you go from being an immigrant to being a citizen, and sometime later, not very later than that, I just like became an immigrant again. So it's funny. It's just really funny to be the eternal immigrant.
So having this very all-encompassing view of the world like you do, multilingual person, you studied English in college. We're in a conversation right now, and you have a lot of life experiences. What has your experience been so far? Just you've been here for almost a year. Like, what's your experience been like?
My experience has been that before coming here, I knew what to expect from United States. I knew that gun violence was a thing here. I knew that unlike in Spain, if especially as someone who was waiting for his green card, and without a not Medicaid, what's the name of this? Healthcare or Medicare or something like that. Without any of those things, even if I sprained my ankle, or if I got injured, God forbid, I had to spend 2 days in the hospital, I was gonna be up to here in debt. I knew these things. I knew that what in Spain is considered normal for the left, here it's considered almost like being a terrorist of the left.
Oh, God.
And things like that. I knew that there were a lot of racism here, and so far I haven't encountered, on my person, I haven't encountered yet. I'm pretty sure I will as soon as I start going outside. It's very safe being home, but when I start working, which will be hopefully soon, I'm gonna see what it is. I mean, if it happens or not. So so far when it comes in terms of racism, when it comes to my person, I've never experienced one, but I have people my wife, my brother-in-law. They're black, and their experience here in the United States as black people, it's just completely opposite of what I can ever have here, even as an immigrant. I'm pretty sure that I, as an immigrant, and many people as immigrants who are not black or brown, even being an immigrant who just arrived a year ago, is going to be, in lots of cases, better than someone whose generations go back to the 16 or 1700s. But just happen to be black, and they're going to have their completely different experience. It always blew my mind how, I don't know if you remember this Charlottesville. Of course you remember that, the Charlottesville march or whatever. The leader literally was a guy with a Slovenian last name. I remember seeing his last name. He was something like Stankovic or something like that. And I used to watch that. I'm like, let me type about this guy. And he literally said that his grandpa had immigrated from Slovenia to this guy's grandpa. This guy's parents hadn't even had at least a fifth or sixth generation ancestors in the United States. But this guy was the leader of, well, they said that he was they were Proud Boys or whatever, but they were clearly had certain ideology behind them that was not necessarily Proud Boy. They were more than that. They were more than that. So for someone whose grandfather was born in a different country and immigrated as literally as shit here. By shit I mean considered shit by a lot of people in the United States as just immigrant who's coming to steal my job and this and that. For that guy to be waving a flag that says 1776 or saying things like my ancestors fought for this land and this and that, the fuck are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? What are you talking about? You have these people who have been here, I'm talking about black people especially, who've been here for centuries, well, brought here for centuries, and you happen to be more American than them just because you look what you look like. So those are things that I knew I was going to experience here. I knew this type of mentality, I was going to see it here, but I never thought that it was going to be as big as it turned out to be. Like, it became very real to me. It's not a myth. If you are coming from outside, if you're not your typical, let's say, I don't want to label like racist, but if you're like white European American who's been living here all their life, their grandparents were born here and stuff, you definitely have a different reality than other people like me have. It's just and it's not like saying, oh yeah, Bobby Jean has a different reality as Peggy Sue from Tennessee or Georgia. We're talking about people who have completely different realities. You know what I'm saying? Their lives are affected by something that is very obvious to other people who are going to use that against them at some point.
For sure. So you're in an interracial relationship right now, right? You talked about that. You said you have to check the box category white on forms and stuff. What exactly do you mean by that? And what was your impression when you had to make a decision to check the white category on the form?
I honestly still have to understand what it means. How do you identify yourself? I have to understand the question first. How do you identify yourself? Can I identify myself as a Spaniard if I wasn't born in Spain and if for a long time I didn't even have Spanish citizenship? If I identify myself as Spanish, am I betraying my Armenian identity, which is the one that I was born with? If I click Hispanic, if I check the Hispanic one, am I putting myself in the same category and in the same reality of life experience as people who are from Dominican Republic or from Honduras? You know what I'm saying? So my mind was, as we say un cacao mental. It's like a mishmash in my head. Like, I'm still hesitant to see which one I check, because it's pretty obvious to me which one I have to check, because it says white, and in parentheses it said Middle Eastern, European. So I am Middle Eastern technically because I'm from Armenia. So you can't get more Middle East than that. I mean, yes, if you go down south, you have Iran, Israel, Palestine, etc., etc. I mean, we are a little bit too far in the north to be Middle East, but we are technically Middle Eastern. Our DNA components are mostly Iranian or Semitic in nature. So we are, as Armenians, Middle Easterners. So do I check the box that says white and in parentheses Middle Eastern? Because that's what I would naturally check, because that's what I am. I'm Middle Eastern. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, does identify yourself mean culturally? Because if that's the case, I identify myself as Hispanic, as a Spaniard. So do I check the Hispanic box? I do call myself Spaniard because I think I've earned that right after living there for 95% of my life. And my culture and my primary language being Spanish. Should I check that? Does even Spanish mean Hispanic from Spain? Or does it qualify as white European?
Exactly.
It's a mess. It's a mess. I don't know what to check, honestly.
Even in Spain, I feel like there's a hierarchy when it comes to the European countries. I feel like Portugal and Spain, the Iberian countries, are viewed in a lower tier than let's just say Germany, the Netherlands,
100%.
England, France. Those are viewed as the classic European countries. And then you 100%. Have, look at those Spaniards and Portuguese over there.
It's crazy. There was this 19th century novelist from France, Stendhal. He said Europe ends with the Pyrenees. That's what he said. He said Europe ends with the Pyrenees. And for those who are not maybe majored in geography, Pyrenees is what separates France from Spain. So he basically said whatever is under us, below us, is not Europe anymore. So Portugal and Spain, they consider us as Northern Africa. Some people, some people in but then the Spaniards consider Africa as Moros, as you said,
For sure,
Moros, Negros, no, and this and that. So we have nothing to do with them. But if you ask lots of French people and people from the Scandinavian countries, they see a Spaniard next to a German and say, "Who's the European?" They're going to point at the German. There's no way they're pointing at the Spaniard. Unless the Spaniard is one of those Spaniards who looks very, German or whatever it is. Because there's people like that in Spain too, obviously. But if you take the stereotypical Spaniard, put it next to a German or a Dutch guy, who's going to tell that the Spaniard is the European?
Right. And see, now we're getting into a weird situation where, and it tells you how much brainwashing is effective, because we essentially conflate nationality with race. So Spain's a country, so technically anybody can be from Spain and they can be a Spanish citizen. And so how can you look at a person and tell what country they're from? Because we've automatically, race has been so ingrained in our societies to the point where we look at Brazilians and we think Brazilians have a certain look about them. Oh, Mexicans have a certain look about them. Well, what the fuck is an American? They have a certain look. That's the thing about it. I had a friend where she described her American boyfriend, and I said, "You mean your white boyfriend?" And she looked at me shockingly. And I said, "Yeah, because I've never seen a black person referred to as an American before in that context." And so you sort of draw your own conclusions. And so American becomes synonymous with white. And so I think with these forms that you're filling out right now, see, we had a one-drop rule in this country.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It was an unofficial rule, but it's in court cases, it was upheld. Plessy versus Ferguson. If you were even a fourth black, you were considered a black person. But notice how it's always a dichotomy. It's always a binary, black, white, green, red, Democrat, Republican. You can't be anything outside of those paradigms that they put in front of you. Pick an option, motherfucker. You can't be both. You can't be outside of black and white. You have to be one of the two. You have to be Dem or Republican. And that's a lot of that thinking is what has fucked people up in this country now, because they don't think that they can go outside of the parameters. As soon as you go outside of the parameters, you're too different to be, you can't be brainwashed anymore, which can be liberating. And I want people to realize that you can be liberated. Think outside of those categories sometimes. But basically, when you check white on a box, it's almost saying that that's the default. Because look at how many different areas that are encompassed. You have Asian, which is its own category. Black is its own category. But in a way, it's very confined too, because even in Latin America, blacks in Latin America check the white box.
Yes, I know that.
Because they use the Spanish language. So even though they're Negro, they use the Spanish language, check the box. I'm white because I identify with Spanish language and culture, even though they're a black person like I am. That I get all the time. Oh, you from the Dominican Republic? This motherfucker speaks great Spanish. Like, is he from Brazil? This bastard speaks Portuguese. He speaks Spanish. Is he from France? Is he from Africa? And so you get a lot of ambiguity because of that. And so because of that ambiguity, because blacks or diaspora can come from different areas, people do to assimilate and climb up the ladder. Let me check that white box right there. Shit, I ain't black. I'm white. But there's really crazy rules behind it. The one-drop rule established blackness as sort of this thing where if you were black at all in your community, you were a black person. Because even those same rules, they didn't even apply to whites. Not even quote-unquote Hispanics in the Southwest. When they intermarried with white people, there was no rule against it. You could do that. It was only with black and white unions when they had to have the Lorvin versus Virginia, 1967, which allowed interracial marriage to be legal in the United States. It was always rules against black people, not other groups necessarily. Even
Because
in
Hispanic
Brazil,
is not a race.
because Hispanic is not a race. Even the Syrians that migrated to Brazil, the Lebanese people in Brazil, they could become white people. But if you were black, you were black. And it's the same, I think, that's happening to you and the immigrants here. Black is pretty much, you don't want to be that at all. So check this white box right here.
Yeah.
For demographic purposes.
Yeah, but in my case, it's like, seriously, like, honestly, I don't want to check the box that says white, because I know I'm not perceived as white, traditionally white, by many people. I go to Germany, I'm not necessarily going to be labeled as white. For lots of people in the United States, I'm not going to be perceived as what they understand by white. But at the same time, I am Middle Eastern. So I should check the box that best defines my DNA, my at least my native tongue, my native culture. That's where I am. I do consider myself Middle Eastern. I don't go around anymore. I used to when I was a teenager. I don't go around anymore saying that I'm European necessarily. I just go and say that I'm from. I mean, I do say I'm from Spain because because I have any longer have any specific ties. I haven't been to Armenia for ever since I went to Spain. I've never been back. I speak the language, but like, it's like kind of like a broken sometimes. But I do consider myself, my origin as Armenian. So should I check the box that says white, or should they have a category of Middle Eastern? Because if they had a category of Middle Eastern, Kiko, I would have no doubt about that. What are you talking about? If there's white as one box and Middle Eastern as another box, I click Middle Eastern. I have no doubt that I identify myself as Middle Eastern. I look Persian, I look Israeli, I look Palestinian, I look Yemeni, I look Armenian, I look Turkish, I look Azerbaijani. I look like many people who live in that area of the world. Wonderful area, historically very rich area. I'm proud of that origin. So I'm not going to click Hispanic, because even though culturally I am Spanish and the language that I best use is Spanish, and I spent all my life in Spain, I still have to check Middle Eastern because that's how I identify myself most. So it is a little bit weird to say the least for me. They should have separate category for Middle Eastern, which shouldn't mean that you are from a different race. It just means that you are Middle Eastern. I mean, yes, different race, but like doesn't mean that Middle Easterners can be white or black. Just say that it's Middle Eastern. I'm just going to click Middle Eastern. But once you put me in the category of white, somehow I'm on the same shelf as someone who has 100% Scandinavian origin, someone from Minnesota, for instance. Am I the same as they are? No. But am I going to check Hispanic box? Because isn't that weird, though? Like, can I go around and say I'm Hispanic? Because in the United States, at least for some reason, everybody thinks when they hear the word Hispanic, they think about Latin America. They don't think about Spain necessarily.
They don't, and they also.
So if I tell them, it's going to be misleading. If I check the box Hispanic, they're going to wait someone who's from Latin America. They're going to be like, hey, so I hired you because you know about Latin American culture. So whatever that is, it's not one, there's many, right? But like they're going to be like, oh, so you will understand. Most of our clients are from Dominican Republic, so you guys will understand each other. No, I'm from Spain. Oh shit. You're a colonizer. You're the colonizer country, so you know what I'm saying? It's weird. It's weird.
No, there's a lot of different levels to it, and it's also very misleading when you add those categories in like that for you, basically to where you can't check a category. Because I'm not a big fan of the categorization thing, but when you put this into politics, like for instance reparations, this could be a very useful tool. It could be. But then I think you would also have a lot more manipulation of the boxes too. Once people figure out like, damn, well, they're going to pass reparations for black people. Well, shit, I might check that.
I'm going to check black.
And see, then you got a whole nother issue. I'm going to get some people on about that issue at a later time about the reparations debate, because that's an issue that's very.
It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing going on. Yeah.
But I want to conclude the interview pretty soon. Do you have any questions for me about this interview? do you have anything you want to direct to the audience?
Oh, well, I mean, questions. I think it's because of my brain right now is how it is. We're not working very well. I can't think about one like a big question. I do wanted to what is it? Like congratulate you for starting the Kiko's Freethinkers Forum. I think it's an amazing thing. I think it's a much needed thing. And no matter what you do, no matter what you say, as long as you have Freethinker in the title, you're going to be criticized for whatever you say. I'm pretty sure that if whatever we're talking here, we talked in a different forum that didn't have the name Freethinker in it, it would have been just considered like, yeah, there's some kind of like a weird mentality going on in this conversation. But most of it has been pretty cool because most of it has been talking about race as immigration from a point of view of an immigrant or from someone who's from people who are from different races, talking about interracial marriage and stuff. So which all of these things are like considered historically, culturally like more left, but as soon as you have the word free thinker in your forum name, you know what I'm saying, it's like, oh, free thinker, oh, okay, so yeah, they think that January 6th was a good thing. Also, yeah, they think that JFK was killed by a Cuban pigeon. It's like that's what people think about when they see that we're free thinker. Also, I've heard a lot of things about people saying, "Oh, so you think you're a free thinker? Why do you think that I don't think freely?" It's like you'll know better than anybody else if you're a free thinker. If you consider yourself a free thinker, good. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to pass judgment on you. I know I'm a free thinker because when I read things, when it present it to me, I don't fangirl and say, "Oh my God, this is what's the name of this? This is pandering to me, so this is cool. I love this. So because this is pandering to me, the people who wrote this have my best interest in their minds." No, I'm going to read this. I'm going to see why they wrote this. I'm going to see what do they want from me exactly, because I can give a kid a candy and slap him in the face. I'm not necessarily they're not necessarily my best. That's not a horrible example, but you know what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's not in my best. They're not in my mind, as like something that I want to. I'm just like giving them the candy and the think that I'm a good person, but at the same time, I don't want kids to be existing in this world. You know what I'm saying? So. Mm-hmm. That's what I think is free thinker. Free thinker is not just some guy who's in a dark web thinking about how cool being an anti-everything is. It's not being anti-everything. It's just
no, it's not.
It's just a question of can we have a place where we can talk about how whatever we read is clearly destined to aimed at converting us to their business or whatever their membership consists of, So those of you in the audience who are here because you are looking for a place where you can, talk and share those ideas, I think this is the best, best place, and this is the best moment to do it. Because I think this is the moment to do it.
Yes, it is. I totally agree, man. And can the audience reach you at a certain place? Like, do you have social media accounts? If an audience member wants to reach out to you directly, how could they do that?
Yeah, I mean, they can. I do have to say that when it comes to social media, for the same reluctance that I have of sharing a lot of stuff in social media, so I'm keeping it to the bare minimum just to keep my friendships out there. I don't usually post anything that is related to politics or anything like that. Not for anything. It's just because I just literally have those places to just keep contacts with some people and say happy birthday to people that I haven't met in 5 years. But yeah, I do have an Instagram. Should I put it somewhere or what? I do have an Instagram. It's Martin DH87.
Okay.
Martin DH87, and on Facebook I'm Martin Wilson.
HW?
I believe. Yeah, Martin HW. Yeah, that's. So if you want to see cute pictures of me in Tennessee or in Washington D.C. or Philadelphia, you can go to those places. Yeah.
When are you coming to Tennessee, man? Like we need to hang out.
I visited Tennessee on a trip to the south that we took, my wife and my brother-in-law, 2 years ago, because we were initially not stopping in Tennessee. We were gonna go through Tennessee, and because our ending point was going to be Louisiana, because we wanted to see New Orleans. But we drove through Gatlinburg. We stopped there, but we didn't stay there. We drove through Knoxville.
Oh my
but
God.
but as I said, we were going straight. We stopped only in Nashville, to stay there for a night, and then we continued moving there. So hopefully soon, as soon as I have a driver's license.
Yeah, man. Well, we're in the Nashville area right now for people. Kiko's Freethinkers Forum is based out of the Nashville area.
There you go.
I'm not
There you
going to tell
go.
you fuckers exactly where I live, so but I just keep it to the Middle Tennessee area, just because I want to protect my anonymity too, to a certain extent. But Martin, I think you were a great first guest. I'm looking forward to future conversations.
Thank you.
And I hope our audience got a great delight today, got some information that they maybe needed or were searching for. And we're going to keep this thing going until the next time. Martin, cheers, man. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you for having me. Gracias.
Okay. All right, we'll talk soon.